Well, welcome everybody. I'm Steve Chandler, and I've got two wonderful guests today, and we're going to talk about coaching. Always an interesting subject, but especially interesting these days because my two friends and colleagues here, Carolyn Freyer Jones and Devon Bandison, are putting on an event that focuses on something a little differently than they normally focus on. So I wanted to welcome both of you. Thank you for coming, talking about coaching. And tell me a little bit about the origin of this event. I'll ask you first, Carolyn. How did the two of you think of this event, and how is it different from what you're normally putting on?
I love that. So first of all, I'm excited to be here, Steve, with you and with Devin. So this event was really birthed out of a conversation, and I think you were even in that conversation, Steve. Devin and I had been talking about wanting to do something together, and as you know, I do a lot of work in the realm of helping coaches grow their businesses, right? In the CFJ Coaching Success School, and I wanted to talk about and do something different, right? That makes a difference in the profession. And you and I and Devin have spent a lot of time just talking about coaching in general. So we talked about how there could be great value for coaches to have something to go to that really got into what coaching is, what great coaching is, what does that look like, why does it matter in the trajectory of being a coach? Is that important for newer coaches to think about, or is it important for even more seasoned coaches to think about? So Devin and I both got really excited about that, and that's what we're doing on April 1st and 2nd.
Well, that's an interesting idea, and I think it's very challenging when I think of it because coaches come from different schools of thought when it comes. Some coaches coach 3P, some coach USM, spiritual psychology kind of coaching. Some people are from Landmark, Byron Katie, Tony Robbins, you name it. They were trained different ways. So, Devin, I'll ask you, in your background as a coach, where do you think your basic training came from?
Yeah, that's a great question, Steve. My training, I call it like an eclectic approach, right? I've learned from so many great teachers. So when we were putting this event together and Carolyn and I were having this conversation, what I realized, Steve, was, we were talking to coaches and their business wasn't moving as fast as they can when I was talking to coaches. And I would say, well, if you want your business, there's commitment. And then there's also, you got to become a better coach. And what I realized was a lot of these coaches didn't realize what that meant, what becoming a better coach. So my background, how I became really good at my profession was I was invested in it. So I learned from everyone from Werner Earhart to Francis Lucille to going to ACS to learning from the great Steve Chandler, on faculty with Carolyn Freyer Jones, Werner Earhart. So to me, it was like the more you learn about yourself in this profession, we'll talk about what Carolyn often calls goal line, soul line, or living life and the game of life. The more you learn about yourself, the better you'll be at coaching. So to me, I have such an eclectic approach, and because I've been invested, what I talk to coaches about is the more you learn about yourself, that your listening will get better. The way you speak, the barriers of listening will get out of the way. So for me, I've been really grateful to be able to be taught by some of the best in the game, and I think that that's what's unique about this thing that Carol and I are doing. The main event is that we come from so many different modalities. Like, we get it, right? We and Carolyn comes from USM, but she has invested in so much in learning about all different modalities. So I think that where you come from, bringing it to the table is just added. It's not going to hold you back. It's like, how do we use that for you to be one of the best in the game?
That's great. So, Carolyn, I know you have an entire school for building successful practice. And it's mainly focused on how to get clients, how to have the kinds of conversations that one would have with a prospective client so they enroll. How does this event that you and Devin are going to do about coaching itself, how does that differ from your school?
I appreciate that. One thing I want to say, Steve, have you noticed Devin has like this glow? I think he's using these new kind of filters
Not
to make himself.
definitely
No,
not.
Notice that? I'm like,
I
I don't
think
have that glow. Do you, Steve?
I don't have that
That's
glow.
good living. That's just good living.
We're going to test him afterwards because it could be pharmaceutical.
Yeah, exactly. So, this event will be different in that we're going to get more in depth, much more in depth about how do you know when your coaching is actually doing something? Meaning, how do you know when you're having an impact, right? What does that look like? How would you know as a coach? What's the difference between having an impact on someone and having the needle not move, right? We're going to talk more about that. We're going to talk more about how do you take the coaching you're already doing deeper, right? Because everybody, including Devin and I, it's like I always strive to go deeper in my coaching. And that means I need to be willing to look at what's not happening, right? What are the things the person said they wanted to have occur? How can that occur differently, right? How can I be the coach they need me to be? Right. And you and I have talked a lot about that, right? When I have a client that it looks to me like something's not occurring, you have often said to me, how are you going to be the coach they need you to be? Which might mean I need to be a different coach. And that might mean I might need to read something differently. I might need to look in different areas for resources and ideas. I might need to just be thinking about them in different ways, meaning thinking about my client, right? It's like I may be stuck in my own thinking about them. And that's really important. And we're going to look at that a lot. Like, where are we as coaches in how we think about clients? And how do we refresh that, open it up? Because I think when coaches are in certain modalities, which are great, right? And one of the things I appreciate about Devin is he's done a lot of different things, Byron Katie, lots of landmark, all sorts of stuff that make him have different things he can pull from. And I really appreciate that. Like any coach that I work with, it's like that's super fun and it makes I think it makes a coach's coaching more dynamic.
Can I just add to that? I,
Please.
I, I think it's a great point because, the more you have in, I just say your bag of resources, the more range you have, right? And I don't show up with one modality in mind. It's like, because I have this range and, and Carolyn is really great at this too, you can show up empty with a client in many ways and go wherever you need to go. And I remember a few years ago, Steve used to say, what if because to me, I always look at three: income, intimacy, and impact, right? And I remember you saying to me, like, what if your bank account was a reflection of the service you do in the world, right? And Carolyn, to what we're talking about here is like, what really is true service to the client in front of you? Because what it will look like with this client right now is not the same as it will look like at 2 p.m. when I have another client, right? So when you have this range, you can be free to go anywhere and really uncover your blind spots quicker because of the work you're doing on yourself. So I think it's really important. And we're going to focus on that, on really what is your impact as a coach? And then, of course, what's the impact on your income?
Yeah.
I think intimacy is an important word too, because
Mm.
I think one of the challenges most coaches have, and I certainly had this, is like, what is intimacy in a coaching relationship look like? Right? Because intimacy can be a scary word. It can feel uncomfortable. Most people think it's reserved for like spouses or significant others, and that's not accurate. I mean, to me, especially if you have individual clients, it's like, where am I in my own willingness to be intimate with a client and to really ask questions that might be uncomfortable for them? And we're going to be looking a lot at How can you take your questions deeper? How can you take your willingness to hear someone deeper and be willing to stretch them into territory that they don't necessarily feel at ease going, right? I love at USM, doctors Ron and Mary Holnick would always say, it's like, we can't take people into territory we have not gone, right? We can't. It's like colorblind. So to me, one of the opportunities for coaches is to really look at their blind spots. It's like, where are my blind spots in my coaching? And we're going to develop a whole process around blind spots that I'm excited about, because you have said this, Steve, over and over. The sign of a great coach is the degree to which you're getting renewals, right? Renewals and referrals are really two of the major signs of you're on the path to, you're already a great coach, or you're on the path to being a great coach.
Yeah, I found that too. A lot of coaches think renewals and referrals are the result of some kind of communication technique. How do I get this person to renew? How do I get this person to refer somebody? And the answer, the elephant in the room, especially for newer coaches, is be a better coach, and they will renew automatically. Devin, I wanted to ask you, let's say I'm in your main event and I'm learning about coaching, and I've only gone through one fairly narrow certification kind of program. I've learned one way of coaching, and now I'm here. How, and I raise my hand. How do I become a better coach? I want to be a better coach. What are the steps? What would you tell me to do if I have a real commitment to becoming better as a coach and I don't have some program to go to like the main event to learn it? How do I learn it on my own? What would you say?
Yeah, there's several things that I think is really important to becoming a better coach. It's one, to me, it's like an apprenticeship kind of it's not a kind of, it's an apprenticeship type of profession. Like the best coaches I know, one, have coaches, but also are on the court coaching. So they have to be willing to, like, I remember coaching friends and just saying, hey, I got to get reps in. And it was messy, and be willing to kind of be messy and feel uncomfortable and get comfortable in that, being uncomfortable of getting the reps in. And then the other thing is to really invest in your learning about yourself, right? And to me, it's not learning to learn as a concept, right? So the beautiful thing about the main event is it's not going to be concepts we're going to give you. We're going to be really what I call on the court. It's going to be practices. So how you become a better coach is like, in our main event, you're going to experience live coaching. So what I've experienced is you can read something in a book, but being in a room and being in an experience where people are getting coached sometimes just settles into you even more. And then you're going to leave with some practices and a commitment, right? Because on top of it, you can have the greatest practices or strat in the world. If you're not committed, then that thing won't come forward. So to me, it's like, best coaches have coaches. They get on the court and they're willing to be messy in coaching people, and then learning, and then practicing and being committed.
That's great. Carolyn, I know in your school you talk about social self, how coaches lapse into social self. And your context is usually in your school about getting clients, building a prosperous practice. What about coaching itself? Can you talk about the danger of lapsing into me being my social self, who I am at a dinner party or in a bar chatting, versus being a real coach for someone in a coaching session?
Right. Um, Steve, I mean, obviously they're both really important, right? Who we are in the enrollment phase, let's call it, it's really important to be in our professional selves. And then in a way, once we have a client, then it gets even more interesting, right? Because there is a friendly exchange, right? Now we're spending time with this person on an ongoing basis. And to me, it's even more important because especially for newer coaches and sometimes coaches further down the path who've gotten a little sleepy, right? It's like, you've talked about this idea of like coaching is not friendship plus, and it's not therapy light, right? It's like, this is where, I mean, the way I look at it, it's like I'm being paid to assist someone in their transformation, whatever it is they're wanting. I'm being paid to do that. So my job is to deliver on that.
Yeah.
And it's like some of the opportunity for coaches is, what does that mean to us? Like, what does it mean to get paid to deliver on someone's transformation? Like that's a lot when someone hands you money to do that, right? Like that's not a small thing. And I think as a profession, there's opportunities for us to really look at that. Like what does that mean to me that someone's paying me to deliver on this? Right. And it's like, am I willing to go high and low to help them do that? Am I willing to overturn every rock? Am I willing to go and read new books or watch new videos and bring it right to my person so that they can go further? And to me, that's one of the most amazing things. I mean, Devin does that all the time, right? It's like, that's one of the things that I've loved about Devin as a coach is he's really willing to like go wherever he needs to go to bring good coaching to someone. And obviously we've both learned that from you. It's like, Steve, you are constantly getting coached by people. You're like, oh, I'm doing some sessions with so-and-so and I'm doing some sessions here. And, I've taken a play from that playbook in the last couple of years, and I appreciate that, right? It's important. So coaches in the main event, we're going to be talking about like, what is going to be your playbook for like deepening your own coaching, because you can't just phone this job in. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. And to me, it's like the mountain with no top. That's what I love about learning from Steve Chandler. It's like Steve, like you said, every year there's something new Steve's investing in and getting better. And same with Carolyn. To me, Carolyn's the best in the game out here, and her school is second to none. And it's because of her commitment to getting on the court with coaches and having them have a successful practice. And to me, that learning, we're getting paid to assist in people's transformation. Now, the byproduct of that is also we're getting paid to learn more about ourselves too, because the more I learn about myself and my blind spots, the less reactive and personal I can take things, right? So a lot of new coaches, sometimes a client may be confronted with something and they take it personal because they have some of these things in the way, instead of getting in their world. And what I love about this main event is, Carolyn and I aren't scared to go anywhere with anyone, right? And I think that people are going to leave being a better coach and being able to make more money in their practice. And then at the same token, we'll have some fun doing it. So I think that there's a fun and play in this work too, that I don't think that deep work always needs to be so serious, and sometimes it can be. So I think that what I love about working with Carolyn is we have this give and take. We when I come to her school, we could be there for days and the hours just go by, because we're so committed to the growth of this profession and people individually. Like when one coach does well, the whole profession does well. So to me, it's like we're committed to this, and it's going to be a great time as well.
Can I say one other thing, Steve?
Sure.
I think there's, now there's so much more certification programs, right? They're all over the place, and like it's fine, right? Like that's where people can get a real baseline. So you can get a baseline. Okay, I know a couple things to do. It might be more goal line, meaning external, like how do I help someone get a job or, stuff like that. And that's all fine. But that's not going to get most coaches the kind of career that they want, right? Like that's not going to create a really strong income. That's like, you're going to barely be scraping by because you don't have a lot of places to go. There's not a lot of places to go when you don't have much of a toolkit, right? And when you haven't done a lot of work with yourself. And the main event is really about opening that up. It's like there's all these certification programs. There's also all these places where it's like more marketing to grow your business. And this is about, no, there's a whole nother level. Because even if you have good enrollment skills, if it all falls apart in the middle, it's not going to happen. It's just not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I love about we're calling this the main event, right? And
Yeah.
even so far, we just opened up enrollment. We have like really seasoned coaches who are on the court already registered and saying, hey, I want to get on the court and continue my learning so I can be better for my clients. And then we have brand new coaches who just started, who's saying, I'm just excited. I want to learn and really become a better coach. And, we call it main event for a reason, right? And it's not an ego thing. It's, one of the things that we work with coaches on is having high professional self-esteem. And I think the better you get in learning, about yourself, the more you can be there for a client. So if I go to a dentist and I say, hey, are you any good? Can you fix my teeth? And the dentist is like, I don't know, I'm all right. I'm not going to that guy. Right. So it's like, how do you develop a high professional self-esteem, not ego based, so you can understand that no matter what comes at you from a client, even if they're not happy with you, that you can stand in that, not be reactive, not take it personal, and really serve them. Because that's really our goal. My goal in a 1.5 hour conversation, a 2 hour conversation, is to have the best coaching conversation I can have for that client, to be fully present, to come from a space of love and really serve them. And I can't do that if I'm worried about my own ego and how I look and all of that. So I think it's very important that what we're going to be doing in the main event is going to enhance your professional self-esteem.
Now, one thing that occurs when coaches see the two of you from the front of the room, you're both very comfortable in performance and teaching mode. You're funny, you're present, you don't seize up, you're not self-conscious at all. That's not easy for most people. So what if I consider myself an introvert. I'm not really an outgoing kind of person. Can I still be a good coach? Can I still go deep with someone without hurting their feelings? And one of the things coaches are always searching for is uh, how much truth can I tell my client without ruining the relationship or having them get real defensive or having their feelings hurt so they don't open up to me anymore. Carolyn, what's your definition of going deep, being straight with a client, even if my way of being is kind of laid back and introverted?
I mean, my point of view is that, I mean, look, I think there's no guideline that coaches need to be funny or able to be in front of people. That's not a job criteria, right? The job criteria is, am I willing to ask the deepest questions possible in service to someone? That's the guideline. That's, like, to me, one of the guidelines. So to me, if you're quiet, if you're introverted, none of that really matters. It's like, what matters is, am I willing to be with someone in their most uncomfortable territory in their lives? Am I willing to be with them in it? Am I willing, like, I loved Michelle would be like, look, when I'm with someone and they forget what they want, I'm going to shine the fat flashlight on that. So am I willing to be a flashlight? And look, anybody could be a flashlight if they're willing to learn. Anybody. And they can be a really bright flashlight. So my point of view is, I was thinking, one of the things that Devin and I are going to be talking about is this idea as, when you're a really great coach, you're not surprised by things, right? So it's like, I've been in some coaching situations recently where it would have been easy to be surprised, and I wasn't. And I wasn't because I'm willing to, I watch things, I read things, I'm willing to use my own life experiences and put them on the table with someone if they'll serve someone. So one of the things we're going to be talking about is, many coaches kind of don't think their own lives matter in the context of coaching. So quiet people have beautiful lives, and quiet people have their own challenges. It doesn't matter. It's like, are we willing to bring our own lives to the table in service to someone and share those things if they're going to help someone in their own life? And that is something anybody can do.
Yeah.
That's great. Devin, how about you? How do you talk straight to a client in such a way that they have a potential to see something that they're doing that they never saw and still have that safe, trusting relationship.
Yeah. So I always have a question that guides me is like, what's the highest level of service to this person? And this goes back to the work we all do is like, am I comfortable sharing and going wherever I need to go with a client, right? So you talk about introvert and extrovert, right? Some may say I'm an extrovert. I could be extroverted and be a really terrible coach. Matter of fact, when I started, I didn't know how to coach. I was like I would learn something, I would listen to an audio and then tape that and just practice it in my session. I didn't know a deeper level of listening at that time. And so my message is always listen, and I really mean this, that if it can happen for me to be a really successful and great coach in this game, it can happen for anyone. Because some may say I was extroverted, that didn't mean I was any good, right? So to me, it's like how I create that safe space with clients is I'm willing to give myself up. I'm willing to share where I struggled. And that's what you're going to hear some in the main event from Carolyn and I, not just, hey, they're in the front of the room. It's like, this is where I had, blind spots. This is where things were a little messy with enrollment and clients early on. This is what we learned from it. So I think when you create a space where people cannot see you on, hey, oh, look how far they've gotten, but like, if it can happen for him, it can happen for me. I think that creates a space for growth for people.
So, Carolyn, I wanted to ask you if I'm considering coming to this event, I'm already fairly experienced as a coach. I'm happy with how I coach. What can I expect to take away from this event that I didn't have before?
That's a great question. So from my point of view, if you're already a good coach, you feel like you've got confidence, your practice is moving in the direction already is there where you want it to be. To me, this is about an opportunity to refresh and expand, right? Because sometimes, I mean, I found this, Steve, for sure. Like when I was at phases where things were going well and all was good, sometimes I wasn't learning as much new stuff at that time. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? We have phases where we learn and phases where we get quieter. And to me, this is a 2-day event where you can be like, all right, I'm going to get to learn. I'm going to walk out of there with refreshed thinking, some new ideas I can put in front of myself and my clients. And I'm going to get inspired. Like part of being a really good coach is being willing to get inspired. I'm responsible for my own inspiration, right? I am. You're not responsible for my inspiration if you're my coach. I am. So I think it's one of the top job requirements is that we continue to get inspired, right? We look for places to go to get inspired, and we can get inspired by a beautiful piece of music, and we can get inspired being in a room full of coaches. And it can remind us to be in a room of coaches reminds us partially why we're in the profession, right? It's like important that we don't just stay in our own little bubble, that we're with other coaches and we go, oh, right, I remember when I felt like that. And there'll be people in the room who are in front of you, right? Who are further down the path. I think that's really important. And I think going to places where the intention is to go deeper and get inspired is really important. And that's true no matter where we are on the path.
Yeah, I love that. I love that word.
Devin, how would you answer that question if someone says, "Hey, Devin, I heard about this event. It doesn't look like it's much different than what you and Carolyn do in the school or what you do in the Game Changer. Why should I go?"
Yeah. So it's definitely different. There's no event that Carolyn and I this has been in the works for 2 years, right? And our commitment to this, we've been talking about this for the last 2 years, is saying, how do we bring something to the coaching industry that's fresh and new? And that's why I love the word inspired, right? Because it comes from the Latin root of the word spiro, which is to breathe life into. And you can't breathe life into your clients and into your life if you're like breathing from if you have an empty cup, then you're going to be overwhelmed and stressed. So for coaches who have been in the game, to me it's like, hey, where in your life are you just like coasting? And where are you settling? To me, I always want to learn. I always want to be in the room where it happens. And when it comes to, coaching this year, like I have a pretty good sense of what's going on in the coaching profession, and Carolyn as well as you, Steve. And this is why we've created this event the way we have. So if you've been around for a while, you're going to leave here with a new, refreshed ideas. You're going to leave here with practices, and you're going to leave here inspired, where there's going to be life breathed into the room, breathed into you, where you're going to go out there and really make a difference. So I love the people who are sitting on the sidelines right now, is like on the fence, right? Because my question would be like, where else in your life right now in your practice are you just on the fence, right? And this commitment, right? There's a promise. Like Carol and I make promises and we keep them. So if you're going to leave with better commitment and higher income, impact, and intimacy. Now, Carolyn talked about intimacy. You may not leave with a girlfriend. That's not what we mean, but really, really knowing the inner game of coaching, of like what's getting in the way. So the people who have been here for a while, I think those are the ones who need to sign up immediately. That's like me and you, Steve, and Carolyn, when something comes up and we see it can make us better as human beings, as coaches, we're signing up. So that's what I would say.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah, please.
We're living at a time, right? It's easy given what's happening in the world. We've all talked about this. There's so much polarization. Right? And to me, it's really important that as coaches, we are staying out of that game, right? Because our job is to serve who's in front of us. And so I think what's important as a professional coach, it's like, if we're living in a world where there's so much polarization, how am I going to stay in the game of acceptance and being able to meet people where they are, no matter how they're showing up, and being able to meet myself, right? And deal with the things that are getting in my way as a coach. And many coaches don't always get deep coaching in their lives. So if you're a newer coach and you haven't hired a coach yet that's really going to get in there with you, this is a place where you can you're going to get some deep coaching in the weekend. And if you're a more seasoned coach, it's like, you're going to be like, well, where am I, as Devin says, hanging out on the fence, and where have I picked up some stuff from what's happening out in the world that might be influencing my coaching in a way that doesn't serve.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, I want to thank you both. I've learned a lot just from talking to you today. And I'm unable to travel to this event, but I would recommend and have recommended to coaches I know that they go. Because this, in a lot of ways, is the real missing piece. When people were in the ACS, and I'm sure it's true for you, Carolyn, they're in your school for success. They learn a system for enrollment, but the elephant in the room is, how good a coach am I really? Because the system relies on people spending time with you and choosing to hire you by the time they've spent with you instead of how you promote yourself. And if you're really stuck thinking, I'm not that good a coach yet, that system doesn't work very well, because time spent with you doesn't move the needle enough for someone to pay money. And so this answers that question. How good a coach are you? And what do you do to make sure that keeps improving? Are you stuck with what you learned in some facilitation course 5 years ago? Or are you continuously learning to be better? So I'm so glad you guys are doing this. I know it's going to be a huge help to everyone, and it's going to move the profession, which is already trending. It's a profession that keeps growing when a lot of professions in our world are shrinking and going away. This profession is growing, and it's growing for a reason. No profession grows if it isn't successful and doesn't make a real difference in people's lives. So thank you very much for being on this interview, talking to me. And again, I recommend to everybody they come learn from the two of you. They couldn't do anything better with those 2 days that I can think of now that the Super Bowl is over. And so, you guys, good luck. I know you put your heart in everything you do. You don't leave anything behind. You never walk away saying, I wasn't really very engaged. I'm sorry. It's always full out, full on. And Devin talks about on the court. I spent so many years in the stands just watching other people do things, thinking, I can't do that, I can't do that, I can't do that. And you are bringing the court to everything you do and inviting people onto the court, not just learn new information, but learn new skills, which is completely different. So, again, thank you. I'm so happy you gave me time to hear about your event.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for being who you are.
Absolutely.